Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Thursday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there, staying safe, staying cool, staying healthy. It's very hot. It's very unhealthy as far as the air quality out there, and it really has been like that over the last several days. And this will continue to be a topic on its own here in the weather world, with the smoke in the air from the Canadian wildfires and this heat being pumped northward from this ridge of high pressure. And speaking of this ridge of high pressure, this is really what's driving the kind of the boundary, if you will, these storms. You got a northwest flow, westerly flow, and then a northwest flow from the outer portions of this ridge, and this will kind of be the avenue or the boundary, if you will, that these severe storms will be, which will be a heavy topic in this morning's video, will be. I really think we're going to have some significant severe weather today. Of course, the models, they're agreeing a lot more this morning than they were, say, last night. So that's the good news. But the bad news means the confidence is increasing on what I think could be a significant line of storms across areas of the country. So we'll break that down for you folks. We'll give you an update on the smoke as far as the air quality. I don't think these models do a great job at indicating where the thickest smoke is. So we're not even going to look at the models, but we will talk about what the air quality is like right now from the site off the good old internet. It's pretty easy to find. Just type in air quality on Google, and there's many sites that shows the current air quality, and we'll talk a little bit on that. We'll talk about the heat, and we'll talk about everything in this video and try to keep you guys aware of what is going on. Had a couple questions, asking, hey Mitch, what's going on with these wildfires? When are they going to go out? I have no idea. All I know is that they're in Canada, and I don't know when they're going to go out. I'm sure they're not just letting them rage on and burn. I'm sure they're working on knocking it out, but that's not nothing that I'm an expert on. But I'm certainly hoping for the best up there, praying for them folks up here, and praying for everybody that's being impacted by the smoke, because there's a lot of people that are suffering from this. I've seen some kids that are struggling breathing, some adults struggling breathing, some videos of this smoke. It's very, very thick. It's honestly a lot thicker than I thought it was across these areas, and that really surfaced yesterday, just surfing social media and seeing these pictures and videos. So we'll go through that. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. You guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. We won't pull up the old clicker here. We're just going to kind of show you what's going on. We've done that a lot over the last couple videos and spent probably entirely too long on drawing stuff on this water vapor loop. But if you look here, there's a flow going up, and then it kind of goes up and goes more west to east, and that's where you have some showers and storms, and some that are severe this morning, some that are exploding here in Illinois and western Indiana that are also severe. And you already got a lot of activity going on this morning. We kind of expected that. And then the ridge of high pressure right into here, centered right over the south central U.S., is beginning to shift further east and extending further northeast. Then you have a northwest flow on this side. Okay, so you got energy that flows in from the northwest and sinks southeast. So this region right into here will be a big storyline of rounds of strong to severe storms. Mesoscale convective systems is the Met term, a meteorological term for this, MCS for short, which is basically potentially damaging complexes of storms that can roll through these areas. And with so much heat, high-end thermodynamics that builds in from this heat dome that really focuses in around along this boundary in this area of wind flow aloft, you have forcing for intense rounds of storms, and that'll be a storyline today. You look at what's going on the radar right now. Hopefully don't get any glitches or anything. It doesn't look like we are, but we do have multiple severe thunderstorm warnings in areas of southern and southeast Nebraska and northern Kansas. Some intense storms going on. We watch this area of storms for later on. What do these storms do downstream as they make it into Missouri? As they begin to, the ridge is down here. The flow is going like this, okay? Like this. So you notice these storms are kind of moving west to east, and then these storms are beginning to sink more so southeast from the northwest. They're riding this boundary because of this ridge down here. So we call this the ring of fire, because the flow around this ridge of high pressure is like half a ring, if you will, if that makes any sense. So we'll watch this area of storms. This area of storms could be big trouble for areas of Missouri, Illinois, even Kentucky, maybe even Tennessee, southern Indiana later today, and we'll show that here in a second. But, I mean, we got severe weather ongoing right now in and around the eastern sections of Illinois, and then moving in to western and really southwest sections of Indiana. So we look at the Storm Prediction Center for today. We'll zoom into this a little bit better for this region. I want to let you guys know it is almost 7 a.m. Eastern time. We could very well have an upgrade to a moderate risk for a very small area in this region today. We will watch for this. We're not sure if it's going to happen. We will know in the next hour and a half to 2 hours when the Storm Prediction Center drops another update. We'll see if this upgrades to a moderate risk. As of now, you have an upgrade from last night to an enhanced risk, a pretty large one too. This extends from areas of Iowa all the way through areas of the Midwest, all the way down across the Mississippi Valley into areas of northwest and western Kentucky. You got a slight risk extending all the way to Nashville, Tennessee now, slight risk all the way up to Chicago. I could see this being pushed a little bit further south into Missouri. This is what we got to watch. So this information could be old if you're watching this around 9, 10, 11 a.m. But just know it still remains the same. This area is under the gun for nasty weather. Tornado threat, 5% risk in the brown, 2% risk in the green of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. Wind threat, you got a 30% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher in the red area, 15% risk of the same criteria in the yellow. I could see this uptrending. I really could. If it bumps up to a 45% risk, you get a moderate risk. But as of now, a 30% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher, 55 to 60 miles per hour and mile per hour reading. I'm very surprised we don't have an area of hatched winds issue, but it's probably because they're not super confident on this setup yet. I think this will change on the next update or two. We got to watch and see what these two complex of storms do in the Midwest and the plains. It's huge on what happens downstream. Hail, 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger, and then you see the black outline regions. This is a 10% risk of significant hail. So we could have 2 inch in diameter or larger hail in these regions. We cannot forget about, and we won't, what could happen in areas of the high plains. A little bit later this afternoon, this evening, we had a very photogenic, wasn't really photogenic, some storm chasers got a odd looking tornado in areas of Nebraska yesterday, and some crazy lightning bolts that were with this. And man, I woke up and saw that photo and I was amazed. I was like, wow. But that's why, even though you only got a 2% risk of a tornado in this area today, please do not disregard it because it's possible. You never know when one of these tornadoes can go through one of these small towns in the high plains. There will be a risk of flooding today, one right in this region in the high plains and one right here in the Ohio Valley, areas of the Mississippi Valley. We'll watch for this Midwest. There's a slight risk of flash flood guidance being met. 15% risk of that is what that means. So we'll watch for a little bit of flooding, a lot of rain developing and falling right here. Much needed rain in this area as we speak. Watches, warnings. There is some air quality alerts out here that's not showing up on this map, but excessive heat warnings up for the purple counties. That is a huge area. This includes Birmingham, Huntsville, Alabama, Nashville, Memphis, Jackson, Meridian, down to Gulfport, Mobile, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Shreveport, Little Rock. Yeah, a lot of people. Just heat advisories for areas of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The good news is this ridge is shifting a little bit further east, but that's bad news for areas further east. But it's still going to be hot in Texas, but you're getting a little bit lower temperatures. It's not as brutal as it's been, but it's still going to be hotter than Hades out here. Very, very hot. Some severe thunderstorm watches are up right now for the areas of storms ongoing right now. We look at the air quality, and basically in these purple areas, which include Pittsburgh, Columbus, up to Madison, Wisconsin, the Davenport area, Quad Cities, Peoria, you are in that purple, which is considered very unhealthy air quality. And then look at the red, unhealthy for millions of people. So you guys let me know what you're seeing out there. It doesn't look like it's any better today. But the flow aloft supports this wildfire smoke being pushed down into the lower 48. And remember, we have a northwest flow. So therefore, you have this kind of northwest-oriented flow, meaning it's originating from the northwest and it's literally moving southeast, which makes sense because of the flow aloft with the winds and this ridge. So unfortunately, we're going to be dealing with some very severe storms potentially in this region and terrible air quality. Let's zoom into this area, and we'll go over this really quick because I feel like we already discussed in pretty good detail a couple minutes ago. But in these regions right here, Peoria, Champaign, Springfield, Illinois, all the way to Bloomington, Indiana, Evansville, Indiana, St. Louis, you're technically in a slight risk, but please be aware also in all of southeast sections of Iowa, even though you only have, it cuts off pretty substantially in northern Missouri, I could see this getting extended a little bit further southward, okay? This goes all the way down into those areas of western and southwest and kind of west central areas of Kentucky, if you will, like Paducah, Madisonville, Owensboro, almost all the way down to Hopkinsville, Elizabethtown. You guys have a slight to enhanced risk of severe storms. And what we watch for is that complex of storms right now in the plains that eventually could sweep its way down to here. Okay? Tornado threat, you got the 5% risk right in here. And then the hail threat, you got a chance of significant hail along with a 15% risk of 1 inch in diameter hail. So you could have 2 inch in diameter or larger hail from Chicago all the way down to Kentucky, all the way over to Iowa, and then northeast areas of Missouri. Okay. And then I'm watching for the wind threat to really be a big deal today. Okay. I could see in the next 1 to 2 outlooks this increasing. If it increases, it'll show up in purple. You got red and then this pink color, pinkish purple, light purple, whatever. But if it increases to a 45% risk, you will have a moderate risk issued for wind. It'll probably be wind driven. I don't see the tornado threat increasing, but I could be wrong. So here's the HRRR model, and we're only talking about this specific region right here. And I feel like this is going to be the region that's under the gun between now and the rest of the daylight hours into kind of the evening and early overnight time frame. So the HRRR model is doing decently at picking up at the morning convection right here. This is right now. Back it up 1 hour, okay? We'll fast forward this 1 hour, and this is showing what could be going on. And these storms are already hitting severe limits, producing hail, producing some damaging winds. No tornado warnings as I speak right now. But we'll watch this area. This could combine into a pretty nasty line of storms a little bit later. So if you're in Evansville, if you're in western areas of Indiana, be aware of this, okay? This could be intense. And I'm going to let you guys know, models struggle with this. I reiterated that 1,000 times in last night's video. They're not going to nail this. They absolutely are not. They're going to struggle. But the idea is eventually this area of storm right here will maybe weaken, maybe. But I would watch out in western Kentucky. Late morning, early afternoon, you could have some intense storms in this area. You very well could. But what I want you to watch here is look at this storm. It's pretty small at first, right? But look at this area of storms blasting along the Missouri-Iowa state line. This could be that D word, that derecho that we watch for a lot of times. Not a lot of times, but oftentimes we have those derechos, basically a complex of storms that can produce winds pushing 90 to 100 miles per hour that forms in this region. I'm not trying to scare you folks in Iowa because you guys had one a couple years ago that was devastating. But just watch out, okay? As we get into about midday, we'll continue to watch this area of storms. But this area of storms is moving so fast. By the time it's midday, 1 p.m., this is already reaching Illinois. So, if you're in Quincy, Springfield, Peoria, please be careful. Any other small town around that region, this line of storms could mean business. And that's why I'm concerned that this gets upgraded to a moderate risk. For this line of storms alone, this could be quite intense. So this is the wild card for today. Is this a little bit further south? Is it a little bit further north? Even though Chicago, you're under a pretty substantial risk of severe weather today. You might not get one drop of rain. But these storms blast through basically all of central Illinois based off the run of the HRRR model. And, make their way through, and then they make it all the way to Indiana. Look how much ground it covers from 1 hour to the next. Look at that. That's 1 hour. That's a lot of ground. That's almost faster than you can drive in your car. In fact, I would say it is. But these begin to enter the Lafayette region, potentially. These could be all the way up in Chicago. They very well could be. If it happens, sometime this afternoon. And these continue, and then they start to sink southeastward out the northwest. And this is when you watch out for Evansville again, southern Indiana, the western and central sections of Kentucky. You watch out around dinner time tonight. These storms will begin to shift the directional flow, and the storms could get quite intense again. You could have a round of storms late morning, early afternoon, but you could get some more intense storms a little bit later this evening. Okay, and then we'll talk more on Kentucky and Tennessee here in a second. And then what happens after that? That's a big question, guys. As we get into the overnight hours, come on, I deliberately pushed 06Z. Come on. All right, as we get into the overnight hours, what happens? Do we have more storms? It's possible. Could be waking up tomorrow morning with another area of storms riding that same boundary up here in northern Missouri, southern Iowa. Okay, but we won't get into that right now. NAM, we'll fly through this really quick. It's picking up on the convection okay, but it really wants this morning line of storms to get much more intense here in the next couple hours and really slam areas of western Kentucky, southern Illinois, even into areas of western Tennessee sometime late morning into early this afternoon, and very quickly weakens before it gets to Memphis or northern Mississippi, northern Alabama. But it does pick up on that very small at first line of storms blasting through southern Iowa, and then it kind of does what the HRRR model does, except by 5 or 6 p.m., it's still up here in Illinois, and the HRRR model has this line of storms all the way into Kentucky. Okay? Man, it's everywhere. But it has this line of storms weakening. So that tells you a lot right there. If we're going off the NAM, you won't have any intense storms in Kentucky tonight, or southern Indiana, or in Tennessee. Okay, so there's a big disagreement. You could wake up to some storms tomorrow morning in those areas. All right, so that's why, even though the HRRR model is very worrisome, the confidence isn't there. And that's what people don't realize is the Storm Prediction Center goes off confidence. Okay, it doesn't go off just random model guidance. It goes off confidence. So right now they're not confident enough to really pinpoint an area of significant winds, which I think someone will get. It's just trying to figure out who. But zooming into this region right here in Kentucky and Tennessee, this is I mean, look at this. This is intense right here. Getting into southern and southeast sections of Illinois. This is around 3 or 4 p.m. And how much does these storms hold together as they make it into Kentucky? Are they going to be more so in central Kentucky, western Kentucky? But this is around 6 p.m., 7 p.m. These storms begin to lose some steam, but do they? That's a big question. 8, 9 p.m., right around when the sun's setting, could be dealing with some storms in Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, and then these eventually make it all the way to the southern apps. Are they going to maintain though? And then around midnight, you get another area of strong to severe storms that pops up in southern Indiana, and these drift again through Kentucky, make it all the way to the southern apps for tomorrow morning. Tricky forecast, guys, and I know that's everywhere. I know people are going to be wondering what time is my area going to get hit, and I don't blame you. You want to know, but it's a tough one today. Updraft Felicity swath tells you where potential rotating thunderstorms could be, and it really likes this area a little bit later today here in kind of central and south central Illinois into southern sections of Indiana all the way into western sections of Kentucky. Okay, and even this morning you got to watch out for northern Missouri. This is going to be very interesting to see how this unfolds today. Okay, I'm going to be watching this like a hawk just to learn, to see which models handle this better. There's a lot of other model guidance you can look at too. But if I was to compare all model guidance, this video would go on for another hour compared to what it's already going to be, which is 30 minutes. Seems like these videos have just been lasting forever every time I make them these days. But anyways, please be careful because the tornado threat is there. It's just the damaging wind threat that I think could be potentially more significant. And we start this, let's back it up here. This is the HRRR model, shows a lot of winds popping off here in northern Missouri. These winds could be pushing 40 to 50 miles per hour. But look at this as this enters. And like I said, this area could be up here. It could be down here. These winds begin to enter western Illinois. And I mean, in that area you see right here, that is winds over 100 miles per hour, guys. That would be a Derecho type setup. So please be aware. Be aware if you're in central Illinois. I would say that is the area to watch, into areas of kind of southern and central Indiana. But I can't reiterate this enough. This could very well be a little bit further north. That's why you have a slight risk way up here all the way into southern Wisconsin. But man, whoever gets hit by this, I mean, that's 103 miles per hour wind gust. HRRR models typically overdo winds, but I'm just telling you, be aware. And then this becomes a lot more widespread based off the HRRR model. As it gets into Kentucky this evening, you could have a widespread wind event as you're getting in Kentucky. So, guys, prepare for this. Power outages. The heat really gets intense the further south and southwest you work into this region, which makes sense because you're not seeing hardly any rain. You really get entrenched into that ridge. But rain, you're already getting a lot of it this morning. Some of this is already what's fell, but another 2 inches, or 1 to 2 inches of rain is possible throughout Illinois, southern Indiana, and the western areas in Kentucky. You need the rain in this area, but you do not need a derecho, which is a severe line of storms. Okay, so hope that helps you guys. Y'all guys stay aware tonight. It's a tough one to forecast. So I'm telling you, today of all days is the best day to have a way to look at a radar. I'm telling you guys, it really is. Southeast, outside of these storms that we just talked about, the rest of the Southeast, pretty quiet. But as we know, we watch for this intense line of storms that moves into Kentucky and then eventually can make its way all the way into the mountains of Virginia, North Carolina, and Tennessee. And then this could still be trailing off. I mean, late tonight, you guys in the middle of the night tonight, upstate South Carolina, central South Carolina, you could have the leftovers of that intense line of storms that's all the way in Kansas and Nebraska right now. This could eventually make its way all the way into central South Carolina in the middle of the night tonight. Okay? If that happens, that would be crazy, right? But we've seen this. We've watched a line of storms that worked its way all the way from west of Chicago all the way to the Gulf of Mexico last year. It happened. So it's pretty wild. And then we're waking up tomorrow morning. Could we have a complex of storms ongoing somewhere in the southern Alps? We very well could, but it's a tricky forecast. Everybody else, you're just going to be very hot in Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama. I'm not expecting much of a storm chance, but I will let you guys know that you very well, from the storms that are ongoing in Illinois and Indiana, could very well somehow get leftovers of this storms that makes it all the way to northern Alabama. It's quite possible. The Northeast today, you'll probably have some development of some shower and storm activity in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Really anybody, especially central and western Maine, could see it. So, don't let this catch you off guard. Some of these could be strong, could produce some small hail. It's certainly possible, and these will eventually drift off. And then we get into the overnight hours. We could be waking up to some rain around the Erie and Buffalo area, maybe Pittsburgh, southern tier of New York State tomorrow. Outside of that, relatively quiet compared to your folks out west of you guys. But, if you're in Vermont, New Hampshire, especially Maine, expect scattered downpours again, cranking up as early as around noontime today. The South Central U.S., looking at my little kitten to my right here, playing with my wife's book bag. But the South Central U.S., you're pretty much dominated by this ridge, so a lot of sinking, just very hot, stagnant air. So you're not really going to get any storms. If you do, it'll be just a very isolated pop-up downpour that lasts no more than 15, 20 minutes. But New Mexico, you guys could certainly see some scattered showers, maybe even some storm activity in this region right here, where you have a flow out the south to the north on the western side of this ridge. So you got the flow going like this. And then if you notice here, watch as these are surging north and then these are surging southeast. So that's what I'm talking about. It's the ring of fire, right? Johnny Cash, right? The ring of fire out there popping off. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with everywhere today. But then you got the higher chance of storms up here in the northern plains, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But, you could definitely get some storm action, again, that really gets rejuvenated in northern Kansas and Nebraska and these sections. But we'll talk about that region here in a second. Temperatures today, very hot. Very, very hot. I don't think it's going to be as hot as yesterday maybe, but man, just if you're basically in Texas, everybody has a pretty much equals. I would say northern Texas a higher chance, but everybody has a chance to get over 100 degrees a day. Oklahoma, just about everywhere will hit over 100 degrees, except in the far western panhandle of Oklahoma. a good chunk of Nebraska, of Kansas. One area of Kansas, if you're in the northwest section of Kansas, you're saved, just 80s, but you don't have to go far into central and into southern and southeast sections of Kansas. You're well into the 100s. Missouri, very hot today. Columbia, Missouri might hit 105. Little Rock will get to 100. Memphis will get to 100 probably. Shreveport, same. Jackson, Meridian, all these areas right into here, very, very hot. And then you have a boundary. You see the boundary? You can see the ring right here. You see it? And it separates very hot air from just warm air. 80s, 90s, and then you got hundreds immediately under the influence of this ridge. So brutal temperatures. The heat index today will be quite awful. This is around 6 p.m. This evening. Heat index, and it could be hotter a couple hours prior, but along the Mississippi Valley, heat index is pushing over 115 degrees. Somebody might hit 110. Just limit outdoor activities. Just be safe out there. Praying for you folks. I really am, from this nasty heat, especially you guys and you women and men that have to work outside. That is brutal. That is very brutal. I used to work in hot warehouses back in my 20s, and it was pretty hot. But I never had to work really outside. But man, I get it, guys. Definitely hoping it cools down for you folks soon. We already talked about the severe weather threatened here. We already broke that down, so not going to do it again. But everybody else, you cannot rule out some severe storms. In fact, I think it'll happen later this afternoon in southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois. I know I didn't mention you guys much, but if you're in the Madison region to Milwaukee, watch out for some severe storms later this afternoon, this evening. They are quite possible. And then a lot of scattered convection and really in central areas of Michigan today. You could get some showers that work into the western UP and then northern Wisconsin a little bit later tonight. And then we'll watch to see what this ongoing area of convection does. It initiates in the high plains, and what it does as it crosses the Midwest, the plains, and then gets into sections of the Mississippi Valley, the Midwest, the Corn Belt region. But speaking of the northern plains, same situation as yesterday. As early as 4 p.m., you're going to have some intense storms that probably get going in southeast or eastern areas of Wyoming. It's like day 4 of this. And please watch out again in these same sections of western Nebraska, even southwest sections of South Dakota, southeast and eastern sections of Wyoming. Any small town or community in this region, be aware again for another round of severe storms all throughout the afternoon and into the evening hours. And some of these could produce very large hail, likely will produce a tornado again in this region, and could be quite intense. So large hail, the chance for damaging winds, and even an isolated tornado is possible in this entire section right into here. And then we watch what this energy does as it works its way overnight across Nebraska, areas in northern Kansas, even southern South Dakota, and eventually will be the onstart of more severe weather into the Midwest and the Ohio Valley tomorrow, and then the southern Alps region. So please be careful in this region. The updraft Felicity swath does indicate this is really what's going on this morning, but you see this area right into here. This is what could happen this afternoon, this evening. So we could have some spinning updrafts up there. And I do think someone will latch and we'll end up getting a tornado or two again in southeast Wyoming or western Nebraska today. So just be on alert if you're in one of these small towns or communities out in this region. You just never know when this could impact your region, your location. Just be aware. Just be aware. Have a way to look at a radar, guys, and get alerts. The Rockies, the western U.S., much quieter today. Not a whole lot going on. You could have some pop-up showers that are possible. I think my guy William out here lives in southern Nevada. Who knows? You might can squeeze in an isolated downpour or something. But I think they'll be very, very isolated if it happens. We already talked about this. Could have some intense storms along the Front Range. So if you're around the Denver area, along that Front Range region, I wouldn't rule out a hailstorm. Even in southeast Colorado, you could get some storms today. Yellowstone National Park could get some downpours. Montana, Idaho, you're definitely going to get a break today compared to the last few days. Not as much rain. And by the time we work into tomorrow morning, not a whole lot going on. So nothing really compared to what we've been dealing with over the last few days in this region. Temperatures, I already kind of broke this down. The HRR model is probably overdoing this, probably into Missouri, where it's trying to get you guys over 110 degrees. But I think this symbolizes it well. Heat dome really entrenched in this region, going to be hot into Alabama, Mississippi, even Georgia today. The heat's beginning to build into the Carolinas, but just as this This is just typical midsummer kind of heat. But you can see the boundary, right? And along this boundary in north, this is where you'll get all the storms into this region. So the boundary is separating very hot, moist air with warm, somewhat hot air, just not quite as bad in this region. So, these are the temperatures, much cooler in the northeast. This is the area you want to be, 60s and 70s for highs, and then much cooler up here in the northern plains, but you're going to be dealing with some storms too. Temperatures out west are beginning to warm up, but I would still say you're a touch below average in a lot of areas, especially right here in the immediate mountainous regions. But stick to your local people for these temperatures and these microclimates with this elevation-driven locations out here. Severe weather will continue to be a big topic. The area will begin to shift further, I would say, east and southeast over the next couple days tomorrow, and this could increase to an enhanced risk, guys. It very well could. Tomorrow, the big risk will be in Kentucky, the southern Alps regions, the hill regions, and areas of the Ohio Valley down to the mid-south, all the way down to Columbia and Atlanta, Charlotte, North Carolina, all the way to Raleigh. These guys, all you folks, but especially obviously in the slight region, you guys are going to have the risk for these rounds of severe storms. Tornado threat is below 2% right now, but this could change. Wind threat, that 15% risk of winds, and then the hail threat. As of now, it doesn't even have a hail threat up, which is kind of weird. But day 3, same scenario, but it's much more broadened. And this is for Saturday. This is getting into your weekend. You're technically, this weekend is your July 4th weekend, even though July 4th is next Tuesday. But another round of very tough and hard to figure out rounds of showers and storms. Be safe out there, guys. We'll give you an update on this here in the next 1 or 2 videos. I'm not sure if I'll get a video in tonight. We're going to do our normal Friday night festivities tonight instead of tomorrow night, which is Friday. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to squeeze in a video tonight. I'll try to do it. But that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and have a great day.